When the powers that be let me know I could talk about the dark side of fairy tales today, I was bouncing with joy. I consider myself a bit of an expert on the subject, having devoured anthologies kind of like this one, hand over fist my entire life, so I am very excited. Question for y'all, what's your favorite fairy tale? Let me know in the comments and let's dive into some of my personal favorites together. How about we start off today with a story that everybody should know, and that's the tale of Hansel and Gretel. The Brothers Grimm published this piece of German folklore back in 1812. You might remember the already dark tale of a people-eating witch who wants to eat small humans only to be pushed into her own oven in the end. You know, the one with the super decadent candy house? The witch who wants to fatten Hansel up before eventually num 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 num. But Gretel, being the older sister, saves her brother by pop! Pushing the witch, killing her, and getting out of there. So, crazy question for you all. What's your favorite adaptation of the story? Controversial opinion, but I actually enjoyed the Witch Hunters flick. Maybe it's because I used to harbor a soft spot for Jeremy Renner. Maybe it's because it was just a fun watch. Time will only tell. Now, I'm kind of tempted to imagine what it would be like to design my own tempting candy house. It would probably be a molasses cookie structure, accented with pink frosting, black sprinkles, totally gothic. Inside would be gummy candy furniture and the biggest kitchen ever. Sorry, I know, part of my daydreaming. That's what happens when I think about food this close to supper time. Back on topic I go. So what you might not have known was that Hansel and Gretel was actually inspired by an equally dark, true story. From 1314 to 1322, Europe experienced the Great Famine, which scholars estimated could have killed up to 25% of the continent's population. It was not unusual for some desperate parents to abandon their unwanted offspring in the woods, and according to some reports, even consume them. The Great Famine started with bad weather in the spring of 1315. Crop failures lasted through 1316 until the summer harvest in 1317, and Europe didn't fully recover until 1322. Crop failures weren't the only problem. Cattle disease caused sheep and cattle numbers to fall as much as 80%, and the period was marked by extreme levels of crime, disease, mass death, and even people eating, and well, young folk died. The crisis had consequences for the church, the state, European society, and for future calamities to follow into the 14th century. And this history is reflected in the German tale, as Hansel and Gretel get wise to their parents' plan to abandon them and make their way to the witch's gingerbread house, only to find out the witch is like, I'm hungry too. Yum yum. Like, imagine being a young person back then, hearing this story and realizing that it wasn't all make-believe, that there were actual parents out there who would do anything to survive, even if it meant sacrificing their own spawn. So, next time you think about Hansel and Gretel skipping through the woods, just remember that even though a candy house seems fun in theory, to quote Rumpelstiltskin, all magic comes with a price. This next story is less of a fairy tale, but more along the lines of dark tales I didn't know were based on a true story, and that's the Narnia series. I remember the first time my family rented the movie from the library, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, back when you used to have to flip through the laminated pages to find out what was in stock. I remember it because I was watching at home, and my mom actually paused the movie at the halfway point and was like, no, too scary, you're not finishing this. Well, the next morning, while she was out on a walk, my brother and I convinced our dad to let us finish the movie, and watching Aslan be killed was almost traumatizing to my young brain. Almost. So for those who are unaware, the books are set in the fictional realm of Narnia, that is deemed a fantasy world of magic, mythical beasts, and talking animals. It's built by Aslan the lion, who protects the whole world from evil. Now there are two kinds of residents, black dwarves who are hostile and selfish, and the red dwarves who are humane and kind. The dwarves there regard themselves as sons of Earth, while Earthlings who travel there are regarded as daughters of Eve and sons of Adam. They drive the stories and unfold the history of the Narnian world. So, fun fact for everybody today, the fictional land of Narnia is actually based on the real-world Italian town called Narni. Located in central Italy, only about 50 miles from Rome, this town was known as Narnia in ancient Italy some 2,000 years back. Later, around 755 AD, Narnia was part of the Papal City. However, around 1112 AD, the mass rose in power as well as wealth and opposed the Pope. And in fact, to make matters more interesting, Narnians refused to be under the Roman Empire and joined hands with the protesters from Rome and Perugia. However, a Roman general named Cardinal Albornoz invaded it during the next few years, and since then Narnia has remained part of the Roman Empire. However, when monarchy was dissolved and a republic was being conceived, Narnians once again formed an alliance and went against Pope Gregory in 1831 in favor of democracy. By 1860, Narnia became an official part of the Italian Republic and was renamed as Narnia. However, till date, the remnants of Narnia's rich history can be traced back to modern-day Narnia. So the Pevensie characters were actually based on real people who came to live with the author during the Blitz. Puddleglum the Marshwiggle was based on Lewis's gardener, Fred Paxford, and Lewis himself can be seen as the basis for our Professor Diggory Kirk. Ain't that fun? So here's what I can remember reading when I was younger, Bluebeard. So it was in this massive book that I'm holding right now, The Great Fairy Tale Classics Volume 2. See, just like, look at this fella. Who wouldn't want to marry him? And then die die and become part of his collection of corpses, as you can see right here. No thanks. So Charles Perrault's tales, albeit charming, were unsentimental. They weren't meant for little ones, they were meant for adults, because at the time, there was no young folks literature. His suspense story, yeah, that one, reads like a crime thriller, with the red-soaked kitchen utensils and curious dead wives, his moral being that women should be less nosy. Yeah, go figure. He based this fairy tale on 2 accounts of dark depravity. One in particular dealt with a savage 6th century ruler. Who was this elusive fellow? None other than Connemore the Cursed, the Breton chief who had been forewarned he would be slain by his own son, and as soon as one of his wives became pregnant, he would kill her. The second detailed the acts of a nobleman named Gilles de Rais, who tormented, mutilated, R-worded, and killed hundreds of innocent youths. He was a 15th century nobleman, a hero of the 100 Years' War, Joan of Arc's protector on the battlefield. Now, after he left the military, that's when the serial killing came into play, and he was given the nickname Bluebeard because his horse's sleek fur looked blue in the daylight. At his shocking trial, he described in detail how he preyed upon and tormented innocents. Perrault drew upon these facts to conjure up his own nightmarish character. Yeah, seeing the drawing of all those women strung up in the forbidden room, the stained key, and the anticipation of death for the main girl really left a mark on me when I was little. So, props to you, Charles. Time for one of my favorite princess stories of all time, classic, oh, Snow White. Disney's original princess, first full-length film, and one of my favorite girlies to cosplay or perform as. Like, I just love her so much. The Brothers Grimm published it in 1812 in the first edition of their collection, Grimm's Fairy Tales, numbered as Tale 53. The fairy tale features such key elements as the magic mirror, the poisoned apple, the glass coffin, and the characters of the Evil Queen and the 7 Dwarfs, which, by the way, they were only first given individual names in the 1912 Broadway play, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and then given different names in the Walt Disney adaptation back in 1937. So the Grimm story, which is commonly referred to as Snow White, which should not be confused with the story of Snow White and Rose Red, which is a totally different fairy tale, which I also love. I have that in a different anthology. So how does it go? Well, at the very beginning, a queen sits at an open window during a winter snowfall when she pricks her finger, causing 3 drops of redness to drip onto the fresh and fallen white snow onto the black windowsill. Then she says to herself, "How I wish that I had a daughter that had skin as white as snow, lips as red as redness, and hair as black as ebony." Well, sometime later, the queen dies giving birth to a daughter whom she names Snow White. A year later, Snow White's father, the king, marries again, and his new wife is very beautiful, but a vain and wicked woman who practices witchcraft. The new queen possesses a magic mirror, which she asks every morning, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror always tells the queen that she is the fairest, and the queen's like, "Okay, great." But then the day comes when the mirror's like, Snow White is more fair, and game over for the princess. Our poor girl is tormented by the evil, wicked stepmother, almost has her life ended by a hunter, runs into a forest to save her life, lives with dwarves, almost loses her life again because the evil queen is determined to poison her, meets a prince, he saves her, happily ever after. So this fairy tale is based on the tragic life of Margaret von Waldeck, a 16th century Bavarian noblewoman. She grew up in Bad Wildungen, where her brother used young humans to work his copper mine. Severely deformed because of the physical labor mining required, they were despairingly referred to as dwarves. The poisoned apple is also rooted in fact. An old man would offer tainted fruits to the workers, and other people believed he stole from them. Margaret's stepmother, despising her, sent the beauty to the Brussels court to get rid of her. There, Prince Philip II of Spain became her steamy lover. His father, the King of Spain, opposing the romance, dispatched Spanish agents to kill Margaret, and they poisoned her. Poor thing, but a heck of a fairy tale. Alrighty everybody, we're gonna end today with another classic story. The Pied Piper of Hamelin is a German fairy tale that has appeared in the writings of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the Brothers Grimm, and Robert Browning, among others. The original legend dates back to the Middle Ages, and the earliest reference was technically in 1284, when the town of Hamelin was suffering from a rat infestation, and a piper dressed in multicolored, or pied clothing appeared, claiming to be a rat catcher. He promised the mayor a solution to the problem with the rats, and the mayor was like, "Alright, I'll give you 1,000 guilders for the removal of, well, the little vermin." The piper was like, "Sounds good to me." So he played his pipe to lure the rats into the river, where, well, that was the end of the rats. Sadly, the mayor was like, I don't think I'm gonna pay you the money. Thanks for doing it though. He's like, "I'll give you $50, which is a total ripoff. And he even went so far as to blame the piper for bringing the rats in himself in an extortion attempt. The piper was obviously ticked off, stormed out of town, and was like, "I'll be back, and I'm gonna get my revenge." On St. John and Paul's Day, the piper returned, playing his pipe and attracting the young ones out of the town. 130 followed him into a cave, and after which they were never seen again. Now, depending on the version of the story, at most 3 little ones remained behind due to different reasons, and informed the villagers of what had happen. Other versions say the Pied Piper led the group to the top of the hill, where he took them to a beautiful land, or a place called Koppenberg Mountain or Transylvania. And in yet other versions, he made the young folks walk into the river, and well, that was the end of the young folks. Some versions state that the Piper returned the stolen folks after he was, paid what he was owed, or that they were only returned after the villagers paid several times the original payment in gold. So the very real Hamelin Street, named, let's see if I can get this right, Bunkerlosenstrasse, or the street without drums, is believed to be the very last place that the young ones were seen. And ever since that day, music or dancing is not allowed on said street. Wild. Like, it feels like just a great urban legend. And that's the end of our time, so let me know if y'all want a part 2. I've been Alexa, your resident ooky spooky girly, and if you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you weren't already, hit the bell for more fairy tale content from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.